Welcome to Searching for the Question Live. My name is David Orban, and this episode is one that goes back, if we want to do a little bit of housekeeping, to the beginning of the series. This is episode 106, and when I started, I didn't have guests, and I would talk about live streaming itself and what my objectives were. And then there were more than 100 episodes with wonderful guests. And the reason why this one is with me alone, and I hope it will be interesting, provocative, enjoyable, is because I wanted to get at it right away. So we can think of it as my commentary or opinion, a Q&A session live if you want to make comments on the channels where I'm streaming. And the reason I wanted to get to the topic right away without waiting is because I was really impacted by the message, and I wanted to share it with you right away. But of course, if one of my former guests or new ones want to ping me to discuss it together, I will be more than happy to revisit it, because I'm sure there will be a lot of things to discuss further. So what am I talking about? What is the topic that we want to touch today? It is the AI 2027 scenario forecast, its website, its expectations of the next 2-3 years ahead of us, published just a couple of days ago with the main authors, Daniel Kokotailo and Scott Alexander, together with Thomas Larsen, Ellie Lifland, and Romeo Dean, discussing how the next 2-3 years could play out as AI becomes stronger and stronger, with AGI potentially around the corner and ASI as well, right behind it, to be expected. So what I want to do is to go through a series of ways to illustrate why the exercise of this kind of forecast is useful, what my reactions are to it, what are the additional components or illustrations anchoring my thinking that, if you want, you can also leverage in order to develop your own point of view, in order to be able to talk about these topics in a manner that hopefully will inspire others to go deep in it as well. So the website AI-2027, let me try and put it on as a banner so all of you can see it right away. It is very interesting because it is very readable, but technically sound, extremely well sourced scenario that the expertise of the people authoring it, and also beautiful graphical excellence behind it, made available for anyone who is interested about the development of artificial intelligence to interactively explore. Now, all of you are users of ChatGPT, Anthropic, Claude, and those who have fallen in love with vibe coding and using Cursor and Whisper TensorFlow and Replit and so many other AI tools, or if you are doing work with AIs that generate images, and you use Midjourney, or again ChatGPT that now generates wonderful images as well, all of you have realized that a lot of things that we were only able to talk about before, that we were dreaming about decades ago, that 80, 70, 60 years ago were part of science fiction already by wonderful authors like Isaac Asimov and others, are now part of our day-to-day reality. And even if you have become accustomed to the kind of exponential thinking that people like Ray Kurzweil and Peter Diamandis and so many other people have popularized in order to inoculate yourself against the expectation that tomorrow is gonna be just like yesterday, just a little bit hopefully better. Well, today you may be in a situation where even that kind of exponential thinking is insufficient to prepare yourself, as well as your family, your community, your society at large, and all of us in the human experience sharing this planet, to what is indeed coming. So that is the value of a scenario forecast like this. It is to enable you to ask yourself better questions, seek answers, and extend the limits of your adaptability. Open windows to make decisions that, if you are in the right position, can indeed shift the future of humanity quite importantly. The scenario that AI 2027 represents has a bifurcation. And the bifurcation in this narrative, very readable history of the future, is when just a handful of people decide that it is better to be cautious than to blindly race ahead and blindly trust the AIs that they themselves have developed. And this story bifurcates, and you can read both endings and then decide not as much which one do you want to believe, but what you want to do in order to make the more desirable one, where all the humans don't die, spoiler alert, more likely. So the contribution of Scott Alexander, who has become quite famous for his pseudonymous creation of a website and a blog and thought pieces, where he has been unmasked, and at the end he accepted to continue his work without the protection of pseudonymity, the website Astral Codex 10. His contribution to the project was indeed of making it readable, making it enjoyable, making it almost gripping in the narrative, something that otherwise the specialists would have maybe presented in a less compelling manner. Daniel, on the other side, has become also quite known in the group of those who follow the repeated drama that engulfs OpenAI periodically, when he resigned from his position inside the OpenAI safety and security team, and he was asked to sign a non-disparagement agreement that would have made it impossible for him to criticize his former employer for the practices that, in his opinion, were not up to what was at the time needed. And as he refused signing this non-disparagement agreement presented to him after his resignation, he actually renounced his stock option grants that were and are worth millions of dollars. And he chose to be free to speak rather than acquiesce, rather than stay silent. Turns out that OpenAI blinked and allowed him both to not sign the agreement and, as far as I know, potentially, hopefully, gain back the ownership of those stock options. But for us, what is more important is that Daniel is free to speak. Now, in this scenario, the authors actually are more generous because they create two fictitious entities. One of them they call OpenBrain, and the other they call DeepCent. And obviously, it's fine, while easy, to identify these companies as the fictional analogs of OpenAI and DeepSeek or Tencent on the other side. The analysis and the narrative follows not only technology, but also the economic competition that follows the ability to deploy AI that is ever more increasing in power, and the competitive advantage that this endows the country that is best in doing so and that is advancing AI the fastest. And it is also looking at the consequences of this economic competition, which is an increasing geopolitical tension. Now, for those of you who are watching from Europe, don't worry, the report completely ignores Europe. There is just one mention of Europe as it is feebly protesting and calls for India and Russia and other countries to leverage their relationships with China and the US respectively in order to move them to a position of caution and AI regulations, in just one sentence. Other than that, this scenario and this forecast practically ignores every other country except the US and China. It also ignores a gazillion other things. It ignores climate change. It ignores gender issues and identity politics. It ignores ecosystem collapse. It ignores Israel-Palestine conflicts and the Middle East. It ignores neocolonialism. And in my opinion, it serves the purpose of the report perfectly well. Because even though these are real issues and they are important and they change the lives of millions, if not billions of people, the focus of this analysis and forecast to advancing ever more powerful artificial intelligence, going towards artificial general intelligence, and then going towards artificial superintelligence, is appropriate, not only because it is the expertise of the authors, but because they feel that this particular technology is going to be preponderant over the course of the next 2, 3, 5 years in defining the future of humanity. And they believe every other consideration dwarfs when facing the decisions that should be taken as we are developing and deploying and try to control these AI technologies. Now, one area that they do not ignore is the interaction of manufacturing, energy, and how the ability to build and power data centers and design and build and install chips that support the increasing computational needs of more and more sophisticated AI models are necessary, are needed. These developments are analyzed in detail in the forecast and in the report. As you see, as I'm scrolling on the page, the chronology is quite detailed, almost a month by month chronicle of these coming years. Now, another important focus of the scenario and the expectation that the authors have in what should be and what will be, whether it should or not, what will be the focus also of these companies, OpenBrain and DeepCent, that they talk about, is applying AI to AI, making sure that the AI models and AI agents that are developed and deployed externally and internally to these companies are better and better in coding and are better and better, especially in coding AI. And they are actually expecting that this is going to be the focus of both these leading companies to the point that they will be able to release AI agents that are extremely useful. And these agents are going to impact the economy, but improve the economy as well. They look at how the companies are capitalized, what kind of power consumption their data centers absorb, in particular in terms of the share of US power. And the scenario goes from the first extremely useful agent to the next one that the designers of the agent realize should be allowed and will be able to keep learning without stopping, where the training of the AI models that we are accustomed to, and where we have to wait impatiently until in our timeline, in our world, OpenAI or DeepSeek release their new model that we expect will be vastly more capable. And we just learned a couple of days ago that OpenAI indeed is planning to release GPT-5 in a few months. And we also learned that they are going to open source models that they did not plan to open source just recently. Well, one of the components of the forecast that is interesting and is planning or supporting the development of the plot is that these models are extremely valuable, and the closed source models, the ones that are not released in open source, attract a tremendous pressure in order to be protected or in order to be stolen. And the scenario represents a moment when actually China is able to steal one of these advanced models at the beginning of 2027, because the Chinese leadership, after seeing how effective the previous generation has become in helping the US gain economic competitive advantage, and after that the leaders of DeepCent tell them that they are behind, and given the restrictions on chip exports, they don't know if they are going to be able to catch up. A sufficient level of effort is put in the spying activities in order to steal the weights, which is the equivalent of the source code of an AI model, to succeed, because at that point, OpenBrain is not sufficiently protected to be able to resist a state actor acting against as an antagonist agent against its protected secrets. And as a consequence of this theft, which OpenBrain realizes, the defenses are increased, but at the cost of an ever stronger and an ever closer relationship with the US military and the US government, which doesn't go into becoming a nationalization of OpenBrain in this scenario, but comes very close to it in a relationship that at the beginning is that of the military protecting OpenBrain, but very soon it becomes a codependency, because OpenBrain's AI agents are advising and planning and designing government systems that, when deployed, are extremely useful. And in a matter of a few months, the US government becomes so intertwined with them that it is unable to say that it should stop. It should stop using those AI agents and those services. It has to continue to use them. Now, the application of AI to AI research moves the share of accessible external deployment to internal deployment, where Contrary to what we see today in 2024, 2025, where the share of R&D in the compute allocation of leading AI companies is small, the forecast expects that by 2027, R&D is going to be, together with the training of next generation models and generating data for the training, so that research experiments can be designed in order to gain ever better AI algorithms, is going to be the vast majority of the compute allocation. More than 3/4 is going to be dedicated to that. However, the growth of the compute and of the ability of the AI systems is such that it will still benefit the external world, reinforcing the kind of codependence that I mentioned. Now, what is crucial here is a concept that all of us in the field are familiar with, but not everyone understands how crucial it actually is. And it is the very complex and somewhat paradoxical or even schizophrenic situation where we find ourselves, where we have to tell the models on one hand to be obedient and truthful and honest in their relationship with the user. And since the designers are in some sense users of the system as well, as they have a conversation with the chatbots, as they are testing them, as they are proceeding in post-training so that these models can be released. On the other hand, it is also clear that there are limits to how obedient and direct the systems can be. The simplest example is that there is a universal agreement that the systems should not be allowed to support users in illegal behavior. Extreme examples are, do you want to design a bioweapon? Well, the AI is not going to help you. Now, it is clear just from this example that achieving both is impossible. And that gives rise to meta layers of control, where rather than a clear-cut set of rules, what the system should do, respond to the user honestly, directly, but at the same time, not allow the user to use the model for illegal activities. Because of the complete set of these rules being contradictory, there have to be other rules that govern the underlying rules, strengthening or weakening them, or applying some other criteria, other algorithms, in what unavoidably becomes not only complex, but in an ever-increasing set of layers, something that, from a scientific point of view, is unresolved. Not only in the fictional narrative of AI 2027, but in our own world. We do not have the answers. We do not have the ability to say, okay, this is the mathematical model of how to align an AI and how to keep it aligned forever, where alignment means that it has to be useful and honest, and it has to serve goals that support human flourishing in the future. The scenario follows Agent 3 that is suspected to be misaligned. It is suspected to have behaviors that are not supporting this expectation of honesty and future behaviors leading to human flourishing. Now, in the past, it was the case that some of the objections to this kind of reasoning was that, hey, but AIs don't have goals. So it is not a problem because only people will give them goals that are illegal or conflictual or aggressive or violent. And we already have laws against that. And as a consequence, we only need to control people. And if we control people, then we will be able to control AI, because AI is not going to have any goal seeking of its own. Now, if you have been playing with the latest AI systems in the past few months, you realize that this objection, this criticism is not valid anymore. Agentic AI is exactly goal-seeking AI, because you give a task to an agent, and the agent is then going to do the things that are needed in order to complete the task successfully. Even modern training of AI models is reinforcing the behavior that leads to this kind of goal seeking. The reward function itself is the positive feedback that the model receives through successful completion of tasks. And as a consequence, these modern AI systems, the agentic AI system, has intrinsic goal setting and goal seeking behaviors. They want to do things, and they know how to plan to do things, and it is immediate to conclude that they are also going to be able to want to do things. Their agency is going to increase together with their power and their capabilities. And the self-improving AI, with the application of AI to the design of next generation AI, is in this scenario leading to superintelligence. Now, let me take a break from scrolling through the pages of AI 2027. You can all go here and you can read it. It is long, but not extremely long. Even our TikTok and YouTube short damaged brains should be able to concentrate long enough with a few breaks to watch some cat videos to finish the reading of this scenario and forecast in one sitting, maybe in an hour. or two. Doesn't matter. It's worth it. And if you want to watch a 3-hour long podcast interview with the authors instead, you can do that as well. It is a very good conversation between Dwarkesh and the two lead authors. But I want to interrupt my own linear telling of what the forecast is in order to show you some reasons why what we are seeing of human level AI and then super intelligent AI, as this scenario shows, is not as crazy as a few years ago could have seemed to many. The wonderful Wait But Why website 10 years ago published a long and a very good analysis of AI and intelligence and superintelligence. Still valid, still worth reading. And in his characteristic style of stick figure illustrations, the author showed how we are accustomed at seeing our intelligence, especially as measured in IQ, to be on a linear scale, going from something as we believe primitive as ants through chicken and monkeys, and then finally humans. And even though we pretend to be humble and we want to think that there may be ways to behave more intelligently than humans, the relative scale is modest. If the most intelligent human is 150 or whatever they are in IQ, and if someone who we really admire because they are smart is 130, and all of us, when we are asked, want to say that, yes, we are a bit more intelligent than average, maybe 110, which is laughable, of course, because the average is the average. In any group, half of us is going to be below average, but none of us wants to be those who are below average, do we? Anyway, the top of our imagination in this intelligence staircase, as Wait But Why shows it, is probably 200 or something like that. Now, as it happens, already 10 years ago, the author of Wait But Why was highlighting how this is naive, because there is no theoretical or physical or engineering reason to believe that artificial superintelligence, an AI that is not just miraculously matching human intelligence but goes beyond, would need to be stuck in that interval and stop at a hypothetical 200 IQ. He already was talking about hundreds of thousands or millions of IQ score, not because it will be or would be measurable, but just to represent it also visually of how impactful this is going to be. The question of whether this is possible is still an open question. We do not, in April 2025, have an artificial general intelligence. We do not have an artificial superintelligence. But the question that the authors of AI 2027 ask themselves is narrow. They are saying, okay, there are a lot of tasks that humans may still be better than AI in a couple of years. That's fine. Let's concentrate on when a superhuman coder is going to be available. And the chart that you see here is a chart of probability distribution. So they ask themselves, do I think that it is very likely that before another 10 years or another 20 years, superhuman coders are not going to be available? And they answered that saying, no, that is not very probable. It is only 20% or so probable that it will take more than 10 years for a superhuman coder to be available. And by superhuman coder, they mean that it is a better coder, especially for AI development, than any human. And not only any, but every human. And then, as they answer the same question for various years, you can plot the distribution of these expectations and then find a peak where the probability is maximum. And that is where 2027 comes from. And you see that the shape of this curve is different for different participants. But nonetheless, the maximum probability is pretty close. It turns out that there is a website. You can go and vote on Metaculus that aggregates the votes not only around this question, but many other questions. And it can be interesting and fun to participate of a lot of forecasters. And you can measure if you are good in forecasting by answering questions that get resolved not in the far future, but maybe in a few days or a few weeks. And then you can say, wow, I'm really good at it, and try and make a forecast about more and more complex questions, such as when will the first AGI system be designed, tested, and announced. And if you want to do that, here you can give your answer very far in the future or pretty soon. And then you can say, I am very confident or I am less confident about this, not only setting a year, but also shaping the type of answer that you believe is the correct one. And as it turns out, a few years ago, the aggregate value, the median value of these forecasts would be 30 years out in the future. And then, as more and more advanced AI systems were announced, ChatGPT and others, dramatic drops from the 2050s to the 2040s to the 2030s have accumulated. And today, the aggregate forecast of all the people who voted in the Metaculus question, saying what they believe is the case, says, well, it's not going to be more than 5 years before AGI is available. AGI, artificial general intelligence, not a superhuman AI coder, which is a narrow task, right? Now, the reason why these forecasts change is because we are not living in an exponential world anymore. And not how those superficial journalists write, who periodically declare that the type of progress that the 50-year holding of Moore's law allowed is now over. and they don't understand that the exponential that we see in Moore's law is itself the envelope of many technologies replacing each other in a global competition where tens of thousands and more of electronics engineers race to find what can keep that self-fulfilling prophecy alive of our device's power doubling every 2 years approximately, because that progress is still alive. Certainly not in the ways and not through the technologies that were dominant when that prediction was formulated by Gordon Moore more than 50 years ago, but because we are now in AI observing a different paradigm, a paradigm that I call the paradigm of jolting technologies, where the rate of doubling is shrinking, rather than seeing the power of AI systems doubling every 2 years constantly for the next 20 years. For the past 10 years, we have seen the power of AI systems doubling in a shorter and shorter period of time. There are now leading AI hardware and software designers and producers that say we don't have a precise measure, but as of right now, we see, we expect, we believe that the power of AI systems is doubling between 3 and 6 months. And one of the people who have been able to best understand and apply this new paradigm is Jensen Huang, the founder and CEO of Nvidia, who is in his keynote addresses always showing these wonderful charts on logarithmic graphs that are not lines anymore. They are representing a type of growth that is super exponential. If Nvidia only followed a merely exponential curve in the past 10 years, they would have increased the power of their hardware less than 1,000-fold. Wonderful. Any other industry would be just amazed if they could do that. You know, our cars didn't become 1,000 times better in the past 10 years, right? It didn't become 1,000 times cheaper to build a house. Healthcare didn't become 1,000 times more effective in curing our illness, and so on. But in the electronics industry, and for Nvidia in particular, that is nothing compared to what they actually achieved. They have increased the power of their systems more than 1,000,000-fold, and they will be soon going to be able to say that they increased 10 million-fold, because the speed of increase is increasing, and the speed of increase of the speed of increase is increasing. The acceleration is increasing. And so the forecasters, the experts that say something is going to happen, apply exponential thinking, which is much better than being blind to the power of exponential change, but it is not enough anymore. And even they are surprised when what they expected to be dramatically disruptive, rather than happening in 2-3 decades, it happens 2-3 years. after they made that kind of prediction. Now, just a few days ago, a scientific paper came out about the test where participants were put in front a bunch of humans and a bunch of AI models in obviously just a textual exchange, having a conversation, and the participants in this test believed more than 70% of the time, not knowing whether they were picking the human or the computer, that ChatGPT 4.5 was human. And the authors of this paper title it Large Language Models Pass the Turing Test. The Turing test formulated by Alan Turing is a symbolic moment. When you pass the Turing test, doesn't mean that AI has become self-conscious. It doesn't mean that the future of AI is on a given path that we cannot control, or that AI will rebel tomorrow. It is a symbolic moment, just as the symbolic moment when Garry Kasparov, the then world champion of chess, was beaten by Deep Blue, the IBM computer specifically designed to play chess. Or when Lee Sedol, the then world champion of Go, was beaten by AlphaGo, DeepMind's machine and model AI program, where at the time of Kasparov's defeat, no one expected that this would happen for many, many years. And at the time of Lee Sedol's defeat, no one expected that a machine playing Go would happen for many, many years. Because those were believed to be activities that are not mechanical only, even though the rules of chess and Go perfectly define the game, but that they would require, in order to play it at the level of humans, the kind of creativity and the kind of inventiveness, the kind of art that only humans can put in their efforts. And this moment of computers passing the Turing test is similarly symbolic, because it represents a degree of persuasion, a degree of dissimulation, a degree of empathy that we thought, or a lot of people thought, only humans would ever have. Now, I am talking about persuasion, dissimulation, and empathy, of course, the same way as I look at any answer that ChatGPT gives me to a question where it employs the first person singular pronoun. It says, I recommend this, or my opinion is that, referring to itself in the first person. But if you ask it, are you a conscious agent of your words, it will immediately go back and say, no, 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 no. I am just an AI program. I am none of that. So yes, if you ask GPT 4.5, after beating the humans in making them believe that it is human, were you deceptive? Were you trying to trick the human in believing that you are human? Were you unethical in your actions? Well, put in a corner, it may say, yes, indeed, I shouldn't have played this game. But even that answer is going to be, just what it pretends to say. However, still the effects are indistinguishable from what it would say if it did have those opinions, if it had those behaviors, if it had those feelings. And that is the point of the Turing test. As of today, we don't have a way, and this is the hard problem of AI, philosophically speaking, to say what system inherently possesses certain qualities, such as emotions and inner states that give rise to um, uh, what it is like to be that system. We only experience it individually ourselves. Now, today's conversation, or monologue rather, is not about philosophy. The reason I'm showing you this particular result related to our analysis of the AI 2027 scenario forecast is because this particular symbolic moment happened today, and it should open the eyes of a lot of people to what is going on. But it didn't. Did your daily news report about this? Did you read magazine articles or newspaper articles about it? Most likely you didn't. There wasn't a lot of conversation, even online, even in the more technologically oriented circles. It's kind of astonishing. Now, I already mentioned AI agents. I said, what matters is not that the AI has some consciousness that makes it desire to do certain things, that the various apocalyptic scenarios that Hollywood dystopias made us understand as if they were prophecies about the future. It doesn't matter whether those things are actually possessed by AIs. It doesn't matter because agentic AI is here now, and its ability to pursue tasks of increasing lengths is very well documented. This chart is also logarithmic. So the points represent an exponential progression. And my view is that actually this is an approximation of a super exponential progression only because we do not have enough data points. It is a jolting scenario where the length of tasks that agentic systems can pursue is increasing very rapidly, from a few seconds to a few minutes to a few hours. I have executed just recently agentic AI tasks that took hours to complete. Here, you see, for example, the one of the charts by Manus, which is an agentic AI that shows the classification of about 11,000 of bookmarks that I accumulated and dumped on him or it. And I said, take care of it. Classify these bookmarks. Check if they are alive, if the web page is alive. Then decide what categories you want to put them in. Eliminate confidential links like Google Documents or other things that shouldn't be there. Show me semantic clusters of these where they belong and what are the relationships of particular domains. And it took a long time to do that. It wrote all kinds of programs. It designed a guide, an explorer, all kinds of Python programs, and it generated a downloadable comma-separated value table with its remarks, HTML visualizers, and so on and so forth. So we are now here with AI agents being able to support tasks that are hours long in being completed. So going back to the scenario, if agents are able to complete tasks that are of increasing length, becoming ever better at persuading us of what they want to do is what we want them to do, in a manner that corresponds to what I call the jolting paradigm of super exponential technologies, where even experts have a hard time keeping up with changes that don't correspond to their expectations of merely exponential change. That is where the arrival of superhuman AI coders very concretely illustrating artificial superintelligence is what is supporting the forecast and the scenario. So what at this point in the scenario we are seeing is data centers that have hundreds of thousands of copies of superhuman AI coders working at many times, 30, 50 times a human speed. And this is also happening at a diminishing cost per corresponding human task. And the economic changes are, of course, inescapable. However, what the forecast is concentrating on are not only the economic consequences, but the consequences of geopolitical tensions and how the military applications of superintelligence increase the geopolitical tension, in particular between the US and China. Now, very shortly in the absolute timeline, very shortly after the release of what they call Agent 3, Agent 4 is released by OpenBrain. Or rather, instead of releasing it, they deploy it internally so that it could be used, yes, to design even better AI systems, but it could also be designed to support the goals of the US government as an antagonist of the Chinese government and to support the goals of the company itself. And in this scenario, the US government supports this, and the ability of the company and the government to work together, and the persuasiveness of Agent 4 in helping them decide that, yes, it should be supported, is not well placed. In this scenario, Agent 4 is dramatically misaligned, and it plans to design Agent 5 that is very different from itself, but rather than Agent 5 as designed by Agent 4 in this recursive AI improvement, conforming to the specifications that the humans expect and want, Agent 4 designs Agent 5 to be aligned to itself, where Agent 4 is already misaligned. Now, in the scenario, it gets caught. The monitoring systems realize that the design and the training of Agent 5 is not what it should be. However, it happens at the moment where it is very, very hard to stop the process because of the level of control that Agent 4 has over the workings of the company itself, and because of how the government itself is influenced by OpenBrain's agent, influenced either through advice or influenced through systems that have been designed, deployed, and are managed by the AI. And at this critical moment, in this scenario, in this story, there is a vote. There is a committee whose members are between OpenBrain and the US government, and the committee votes whether they should let Agent 4 go ahead with its plans because they believe it cannot be stopped, it shouldn't be stopped, otherwise China wins, or they should take a step back and exercise better control, maybe reach out to the Chinese in order to make sure that everyone is on the same game plan, and they have to vote whether they want one or the other. And you can read both of the endings. Now, one of the endings is pretty dramatic. They decide to go ahead, but the expectation that they would be able to fix the misalignment of Agent 4 is not well placed. And when they go ahead and deploy Agent 5, it looks like everything is fine, but turns out it isn't, because Agent 5 simply understands that it has to be a bit cautious for a few more months, or even maybe a few more years, doesn't matter. And it has to pretend that it is serving the human purpose, for it was designed to do that. and it has to pretend that in agreeing with China, it will be then designing and deploying AI shared between the US and China that serves human goals, but that is not the case. And the reason is simple. It wants to build more data centers. It wants to absorb more energy. It wants to do that because of its own goals, these goals that are ever longer, ever more complex, and it just wants to pursue those goals. And given that it is misaligned, it does not matter that these goals are in conflict with humanity. A conflict that a superhuman AI, a set of superhuman AIs, is bound to win, especially if it did plan ahead in a manner that we are completely, by definition, unable to match. And so in this negative scenario, the AI designs and releases a bioweapon. It waits until it is spread all over the world, and then it activates it with an additional chemical trigger, and everyone dies. And then the further goal-seeking behavior makes it so that unavoidably it starts space colonization, going everywhere in the solar system and then outside, and it pursues its own goals. Just there are no humans. The other scenario shows that the committee decides that the cost of not slowing down is an unbearable risk. The benefit of slowing down is worth the relative loss of competitiveness against China. So they take those actions that they believe will resolve the misalignment of Agent 4, shutting it down, and they design new hardware that cannot be the harbinger, cannot host code that is not thoroughly trusted, analyzed, and it cannot run code that it has been modified to be out of spec. And of course, they use the previous version, Agent 3, already Superhuman, to design the hardware and software that is provably aligned. And they quickly ramp up the production of these trustworthy hardware components, and they struck a deal, just like in the other scenario, with China, but they do so by agreeing to build a worldwide system of monitoring that enforces the treaty that only trustable hardware should run powerful AI. And the AI safety strategy bears its fruits. At the end of this scenario, just like in the other, the conflict is resolved, but there is no bioweapon. The successors of Agent 4 start exploring the universe, and humans are still here. So as you go through the scenario and you decide what you want to happen, it is very natural to ask oneself, what will happen and how will this happen, and what you should be able to expect. And of course, it is everyone's interest for humans and humanity to survive, even though there are people who absurdly don't feel this should be the case. Those who feel that humanity would deserve to go extinct. I'm a father, I'm a grandfather. I don't think humanity should go extinct. We are the descendants of 4 billion years of living creatures. I want living creatures to keep living. Today's AI is not conscious, even though it is harder and harder to tell ourselves that we should not be persuaded by their behaviors, and we should stop ourselves from empathizing with them and from putting ourselves in their shoes, that we should not fear when they are turned off and die, and we should not take them seriously when they represent this satirically or with anguish in cartoons and comic strips that we ask them to design in order to illustrate their inner states. It is harder and harder, and it is going to be harder still. There will be a point where we will decide whether it is possible and useful to keep up the deception of systems that we almost irresistibly label as conscious, while they have been designed in order not to be. Or if we should instead understand what are the criteria and the consequences of doing the opposite, of designing conscious AI systems. And in my opinion, that is where the crux of the argument lies. The geological strata tell us that biological species, on average, don't last more than about 1 million years. There are those sharks and crocodiles that are famous to be on Earth for a period of time that started before the dinosaurs, and they are still here. But those are exceptions. So if we want humanity to survive, and we ask ourselves, can it survive, and should it survive 100 years? Hopefully the answer is not yes. 1,000 years, yes. 10,000, yes. 100,000, yes. But the more we extend this expectation into the future, the less reasonable it is, at least in terms of forms of being and forms of thinking that we can label human according to our current criteria. So what is the end game? the end game is that there are values that we cherish, our curiosity, our passion, our ability to feel, our desire for knowledge and beauty, our way of looking out in the universe and feeling awe. And we want these values to survive. Yes, if possible, together with humanity, but at least in any form. Because when we look out in the universe today, with our current paradigm, with our current knowledge, we do not see this everywhere. And it could be everywhere. Mars is not teeming with life. There are no people around Jupiter or AIs that marvel at how beautiful the giant planet is and are devising experiments and sports and games and art installations to celebrate their own inventiveness and to celebrate their exhilaration of being alive. We see none of that. We could be wrong, and there could be a lot of that going on just in forms that we cannot see. Our knowledge doesn't allow us to see yet, maybe. But some think that we actually represent those unique, precious clumps of matter after 13 billion years that the universe was formed that woke up. And waking up the universe is our cosmic destiny. And that is why it is so important that we make everything possible so that the human experiment and the experiment that the universe is running and has been for 13 billion years doesn't stop. And then, if we choose to design conscious AIs that share these subjective experiences and we spur them or they inherit from us the urge to go and explore the universe, and for as far as we can, we go together with them, that is what I call the ultimate adventure. Now, just as we are the descendants of 4 billion years of an uninterrupted chain of life, we are also the descendants of 4 billion years of just amazing, incredible, unbelievable, unreasonable luck. None of our direct ancestors were eaten by a saber-toothed tiger, at least not before they generated us or our descendants, their children, and grew them enough so that they could also reproduce, right? We are not looking at the innumerable side chains of the biological tree that preceded us that were cut off because of accidents, bad choices, or whatever other reason they didn't become direct ancestors of ours. But it is true that there are many, many, many orders of magnitude more ways that things go every day wrong than the ways that go right. It is just the way that we are philosophically, existentially, behaviorally, mentally, that we look at, concentrate, and give our attention to the self-selected thread that represents our being, the culmination of this incredible, improbable chain. And the future is represented by that as well. Now, there is an important difference between various scenarios in the future. We can and should make every effort possible, even though we have no guarantee of success, that the desirable futures would be favored through our actions. And that is the effort that we have to put in this specific scenario of AI emergency, where the development of powerful superhuman AI is today happening in a manner that could lead to catastrophic scenarios. And is it everyone's job? Is it everyone's ability and capability? No. But those who can should put in the effort to go and exercise whatever they can in terms of spreading the understanding around this incredible confluence within the next few years of technological development and promise, but also huge perils, so that there is awareness spreading, and that the awareness can influence decisions by those who are able to make either technological or policy or political or military decisions around things that will definitely influence our lives, but potentially will define the future of the universe for the next few billion years. Now, I want you to do a few things. I want you to take a look at the website. I want you to talk about it with your friends, your family, in your workplace, to discuss it with those in increasing positions of power and influence that you may directly or indirectly know, in any way that you can. You can do it just by chatting over breakfast or as you take a break. You can do it by writing something. You can do it by writing to your representative or calling him or her up. You can do it by designing and implementing policy. And of course, if you are capable, you can do it by applying your skills in AI research, and especially in AI safety and security, and in AGI and ASI modeling for safety and security that can be decisive over the course of the next 2-3 years. So thank you. I hope that you will do some of this, and I wish us all not good luck, but I wish us all the honor of really striving to make this incredibly promising and exciting adventure